Today we have Mary Calvi, not just a journalist, an anchor woman, but also a mom and a first lady.
Yes, yes.
So,
thank you so much for having me. It's
thank
really
you very
lovely
much.
to sit with you.
Mary, the purpose of this interview is to congratulate you on your success,
Oh, thank you.
but also use your success to motivate other young people, men and women, how important it is for having an education, a plan, and then an execution on how to execute that plan. So, be my guest and tell us a little bit about yourself.
About me? Oh, sure.
Yes.
Well, I'm a mom of 3 children. They're all teenagers and working very hard at trying to achieve success. And one of them is in college, one of them is a senior in high school, and one of them is a sophomore in high school. So first is motherhood for me, and then comes career for me. So I think that would be, if you were to ask me to describe myself, that's what I would be, is a mom of 3. And you know, my husband and I have been married for 23 years and have lived in Yonkers that entire time. In fact, we both were born and grew up here, so
No,
we love this place.
The one that is going to college, where is he? Here in local college?
He's
or
at University of Maryland.
Maryland.
Yes.
I remember when the mayor was there to watch his hockey.
That's right,
Yeah,
yeah. We've had a
sometime
lot
ago.
of fun. So he's a sophomore now.
Now, Mary, talking about society and issues affecting our society nowadays, we have problems with bullying, that sometimes it's the path to suicide on many kids that cannot handle. A lot of the parents don't know how to handle those situations, and they don't know how to recognize those signs that the kid is being depressed. How you feel about that?
Well, you know, I think that there is so much help for parents now to be able to reach out and get an understanding from the experts as to what to do. So I think that if there are any signs, that if people see anything at all, they should really be talking to each other. And I think communication is really important, especially among moms and dads, to be able to speak to each other and get advice on what to do and what's the best way to handle it. Right nowadays, there are just so many wonderful organizations that have committed their time to being able to assist just parents as to how to handle it. So I would suggest that if a mom sees anything, that they should reach out immediately to see what they can do to help.
Now, I don't know if you know that maybe about a month ago or so, there was a 14-year-old in Yonkers, a young boy from, I think, Palisades Prep, who took his own life. 2 weeks ago, there was another lady who took her own life at Ridge Hill. It seems like mental illness is an issue. Do you think that our society, that we have mechanisms that to deal with those situations?
Clearly not enough when you talk about such devastating stories that have occurred in our city. Clearly, we should be doing more to help, to reach out to those families, to see whatever we can do to make life better for them, for their children. It is just such a tragedy when you hear something like that happen. And of course, there should be more that should be done to help. It's a devastating time that we're dealing with.
How are you involved with Yonkers and politics, public schools? I don't know if your children went to public schools in Yonkers. Did they?
They're in Catholic school.
Catholic school.
Yeah, my son is in public university.
Okay. Do you think our public schools are equipped to deal with those situations?
I know that we have a fine group of people that is leading the charge and a fine group of people that are in charge of the school district. I believe that there are mechanisms in place to assist in every way possible. But certainly if there are those who think that more can be done, I think that it's an amazing group of people that's open to discussing whatever else can be done to make life better for children in public schools.
Now, Mary, let's talk about you when you were 15, 16. Did you always wanted to be a journalist?
Yes.
Always.
Always wanted to be a journalist. to tell great stories, and whatever mechanism would be used to do that. So at first I wanted to be a newspaper journalist, and I started my career as a radio journalist, and then moved into television journalism. But I knew, yes, when I was in high school that that's what I wanted to do. I think when I told people that I wanted to be a reporter, they all sort of looked at me like, really? Because you just don't really hear kids saying they want to be reporters. So nobody really knew like where to lead me and how to guide me in the right direction. So I did a lot of work myself to determine where I wanted to go to college, what was the best program, and ended up going to Syracuse University, which has a really great journalism department, and that was really a wonderful spot for me to be able to kind of hone my craft and learn as much as I could from the experts in the field.
Now, Mayor Spano in Yonkers, there is some controversy about his tough negotiating skills.
Okay.
And sometimes you have to report on those things. You as the wife and the reporter at the same time, how do you reconcile doing both?
Well, I'm really careful with my journalistic career that we keep them separate. So I don't report on him. I don't think it would really be proper. So usually there's another reporter who would report on any events that were happening around my husband's job and his career. But so I feel pretty comfortable in that respect. We've been together a long, long time, and we've kind of understood that he has his career and I have my career, and we understand that and have been able to balance it for decades now.
So you're able to maintain your identity, and so does he. And with anything else, inside of a household, there is always sometimes difference of opinions. Is there anything that your husband does or anything that he did that you might disagree with and you would suggest him to do it differently? Can you tell us again?
Truthfully, having 3 kids and with both of our jobs, we don't debate issues.
But you a great debater, though. I heard about it.
When I was in high school, yeah. I was on the debate team, or forensics team as we called it back then. So if I had to debate, I could. But we deal with so many issues, meaning like, who's going to drop off my son at hockey? How are we getting my daughter to dance class? I mean, we are so caught up in our personal lives that, truthfully, I don't think we have ever had a big debate about policy issues when we were in the house. I mean,
trying to stay away from that?
Honestly, I don't think we're trying to stay away. There's just, we run out of time, you know what I mean? I'm trying to get out to work. I have the early hours, and he has meetings, and so the time we have together, it's much more personal than policy. I mean, in fact, I can't remember a time that we had an argument or something about a policy issue ever. So it's just not part of our relationship. Maybe in other households it would be, but I'd be amazed because there's just not a whole lot of time to sit down and discuss these issues.
Now, Mary, you are the First Lady of Yonkers, and we have a First Lady of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Most First Ladies before Donald Trump was elected, they got involved in current affairs, issues affecting the nation.
Okay.
But not this one. This one is pretty much on the side. She might get involved here and there with the code that might say something. Do you think she needs or should be more involved with the issues affecting our nation?
Well, I'm trying to think, but if I remember correctly, I believe she was on an anti-bullying campaign that we reported on, as well as starting up an organization called Be Best that I know we reported on as well. So I believe she started up those organizations in order to assist in several different ways. So maybe what you're seeing is different, but I just know what we've reported on.
Okay, but do you agree or disagree that the basics of everything should start at home, the principles and the morals? Do you believe in that?
I think
the education.
Every mom is striving to be able to raise their children in a moral and high-valued home. And And so I think we all really work towards that, and that's one thing that, you know, we truly believe in. And I don't know if it's something that we sit down and talk about, we want to be, you know, present this way, you know, present ourselves this way to our children. I think we're sort of like hoping that who we are sort of goes, you know, kind of passes on to our children as well.
But the foundation, you know, and what I'm trying to get to is you're saying that the First Lady, she started the organization of anti-bullying. And many Americans everywhere think that the current president is a bully. So perhaps she should start inside her home, you know, inside her house.
Oh, well, I wouldn't want to make a comment in regard to the First Lady or the President, especially because of what I do for a living as a journalist. I really try to be very careful in that regard. But certainly everyone has the right to their opinion, and I could understand that you would have that opinion and others might have that opinion, but I certainly want to present my opinion about that.
Now I'm going to address to your husband, not as a mayor, just as Mike. You know, there is Mayor Mike Spano, the person we see on TV that we see on the negotiations. Now let me ask you about Mike. How is Mike at home? A nice, sweet guy, easygoing, relaxed kind of man, or is he as tough as he presents to be?
Well, I've known him, you know, since I was a teenager, so he is just a lot of fun. I mean, we have a great time together. We have a great time with our kids. He's a dedicated dad. I mean, he was just driving, you know, my son up north. He's always in Massachusetts or Connecticut or New Jersey on his time off to be able to take my son to play hockey and things like that. But oh yeah, he's wonderful at home. We have a great time together. And when you say he's a tough negotiator in his job, I'm sure it's because he has to be in that type of role. But when he's at home, I mean, he's just wonderful to be around, and we have a great time together. So I don't really see that side of him when he's at home.
So at home you don't see the mayor, you just see Mike.
Well, I guess I see the mayor. Yes, he is the mayor, and Mike too. I mean, it's one and the same. But I don't think I really think of him as a tough negotiator necessarily. But I know he would be tough when he has to be.
Yeah. Now, the mayor has not announced yet that he's running. Now, I think it's November. How you see that? You know, there would be the third term, and I'm sure that it's a lot of work involved. Are you looking forward for a third term?
Well, Mike has been involved in politics for many years in the state assembly. He was a county legislator, and as the mayor now, it's going to be up to him as to what he decides to do. This job, and anyone who's done it, it's 24/7. You know, being a public servant and working for your community is very difficult work, just because there's so much to do, and so many plans need to be made, plans need to be implemented, and so yeah, there is so much work involved. I support him no matter what he decides to do, in everything he decides to do. So he always knows that he has me rooting him on as his cheerleader, whatever he, in the end, believes is best for him.
What about your kids? Do they like politics?
Do they like politics? You know, I think it's always just been a part of their world, and so I think it's just expected, just like anybody else, a person who might be an accountant or a person who might be a lawyer, you know, and I think they just understand how it works. I don't think it's even something I've ever asked them, do you like politics? I mean, it's just sort of just part of our world.
But sometimes you see things without asking, you know, maybe they see something on TV, they enter among themselves into a dialogue or debate about what they see. You can see the tendencies. Have you seen anything like that?
I think they understand the inner workings of it, and they probably see it from a different side than maybe other people might, just because they've seen it so much growing up, and they've been to so many events and community events with Mike, and have seen the elections and how those go as well. So they probably have some great insight into the world of politics from another side, from the real personal side, and how much work it is. And you know, sometimes, you know, when you're on running for election, you're up at 5 in the morning campaigning and doing all of that, but also working late into the night to go to meetings to, you know, either get policies passed or plans implemented. So, yeah, I think they see it on that end, you know, as to the work involved.
Okay. Now, Mary, let's jump into your book. It's coming up, what, February? What day?
So, yeah, it'll be published February 19th, which is the day after President's Day.
And this is not the first book, correct? Yeah.
I've never written before. I've never written a book before. This is my first, and I was never expecting to write a book. I just truly stumbled upon a great story that I thought needed to be told.
Tell us a little bit about the story.
So it's a romantic story about George Washington, a young George Washington, and an heiress who lived right up the street from where we are now. We're at Le Moulin Restaurant, right along the Hudson River. And Mary Philipse was the richest, one of the richest, but possibly the richest single woman in all of colonial America at the time. So we're talking in the 1750s. And her family owned all this property that we're sitting on now, but from Harlem north. 250,000 acres of property.
Huge. And about your research, you know, I'm sure that to write a book like this, you had to do tons of research.
So I spent years doing research and went through thousands of documents, which I was able to look at through the Library of Congress, Harvard University, New York Historical Society, New York Public Library. I looked at documents that were in California as well as England. I mean, it was quite vast and quite extensive, but I was really passionate about trying to find this story that I was looking for. So the way it emerged was, I grew up in Yonkers, as did my husband, and when I was a little girl, I went to visit her manor. So this is Mary Philipse, and her manor it still stands. It was the original city hall in the 1800s, but in the 1700s it was her home. And I knew that she lived there, and I was always curious about her. But when Mike had his inauguration at Philipse Manor, which was, again, the first city hall, I thought maybe it might be nice to know for sure whether the local lore is true that George Washington once courted her. And nobody really knew the truth. We couldn't substantiate it. So I said, well, let me start doing the research. And I was really stunned to learn that, yes, there was a courtship between the two. And the story went further because George Washington at the time was a young colonel in the British Army. And he was just sort of on the precipice of greatness. And he met her and courted her, but he was stationed in Virginia. And he was ordered to go back to Virginia, build a fort down in Virginia. And as he was away, other men were trying to move in on his girl.
No mercy, not even back then, huh?
Yeah, not even back then. So there were quite a long list of suitors who were interested in Mary Philipse. I believe Mary was waiting for George Washington to come back. But that list of suitors, which was really quite interesting, and this is a never before told part of the story, those suitors who were British officers, I believe wronged George Washington, and I believe they launched a bit of a smear campaign against him, scathing article, it appeared in the paper. George Washington never was promoted the way I think he should have, and anytime George Washington asked for leave, 10 days off, 12 days off, possibly to come back to see Mary, maybe ask for her hand in marriage, he was denied that leave by his British commanders, the same men who were trying to court Mary Philipse.
Now, isn't it amazing that after all these years, there is still documents that allows you to research and make sure that the facts that are on this book are true?
So this is what really I found stunning, is that not only do the documents exist, they are preserved beautifully. I was just at Harvard University last week. It was the second time I was there. I was looking at a beautiful love letter that was written by George Washington. And right there in front of me was this 4-page letter preserved beautifully in silk. And you could read it clearly. You could see his handwriting perfectly. And I saw this a number of times. Not only was that document preserved, but a number of other documents related to Mary Philipse were also preserved. So I think now is the perfect time for people to start doing research about their hometowns, because I think history hides in every hometown, just waiting to be discovered. And because the documents are now available physically, but oftentimes digitally in digital archives, you can just start your search online if you wanted to. And from there, you can then move on to the next level, which is trying to like look at the footnotes to determine which library might have a physical document that you have to find. So that's basically what I did. I started digitally and also looked through old books, and even I was in a couple of basements looking through storage. So it was quite fascinating to find a number of elements some that have never seen the light of day in 200 years.
Now, Mary, this book is for all ages, right? It's not recommended for a certain age group, anyone?
That's correct, yes. It's historic fiction is what it would be, and it looks at their relationship and also gives people a real understanding of who George Washington was in his 20s, but also what happened to Mary Philipse, which in the end was quite devastating. And I think it would be interesting for people who are interested in history to take a look at this. This goes from the French and Indian War to the American Revolution. So it's that time in history in the 1700s, as well as the signing of the Declaration of Independence. You'll get a little bit of all of those. So the historic documents are weaved throughout the novel, and then there's an additional story that's placed throughout. So to keep people's interest, to give people a real understanding of what life was like.
So, since we talked about books and reading, now let's take just a couple of minutes to talk to our audience to explain how important it is to read. Because a lot of people, nowadays they constantly on their phones, they no longer pick up a book. How important it is for the education of a child or a teen to read it.
That's such a good point that you made, because really, if I wasn't interested in reading, I would never have been able to find the story, because I was going through books that were written in the 1800s, biographers who talked about Mary Philipse, that George Washington fell in love with Mary Philipse. So there were these old books in front of me. If you dive into the book, I know some people are like reluctant, but I think if you do, you kind of find a whole new world out there, and you can learn things that you would just never have imagined. George Washington was really interesting in that way because he didn't have a formal education. He really relied on books in order to be able to learn new things. And I think if you take from him something that's as simple as reading, I think that's a good way to get started in really finding history that is just waiting to emerge.
Now, Mary, this book is coming out next month. Where can we get this book? It's going to be on libraries or bookstores or just online? How can I get them?
Oh, it's everywhere that books are sold. Yeah, if you want to go to your independent bookstore, if you want to go to your library or Barnes & Noble, or if you want to order it on Amazon, you can get it anywhere. And also, there's an audiobook that people can get if they are not interested in looking at all the words. They can just read, or if you want to get an ebook, you can get that. So just about anywhere that books are, and you can find this.
Now, we are live on Yonkers Voice. I know that you have an event coming up. Can you tell us about this event, where it is, what time it is, so maybe?
Oh, sure, yeah. So we have a beautiful event coming up on February 13th. That'll be at the Yonkers Public Library right here at the riverfront. And it's a free event, so you can come on in and take a look at the book, and there'll be an exhibit that goes along with it and hear about some of the research. And you can ask me questions, get the book signed, whatever you'd like. Then we have a book talk at Barnes & Noble on Central Avenue in Yonkers on the 14th, on Valentine's Day, which actually is interesting, but on February 14th.
Love Story 14.
Yes, and in fact that day is, the 14th is when I believe George Washington came to New York and met Mary Philipse in 1756. So we'll be at Barnes & Noble on the 14th, and then the 15th will be actually at Philipse Manor. There's what they call a magical evening in store for everybody, so you can taste the cuisine from the 1700s, maybe have a drink from the 1700s if you like. I'll be there to answer any questions and present some of the research as well, but you'll hear music from that time, and there'll actually be reenactors as well. So it should be a really wonderful time. That also will be in Washington Heights. Mary owned a mansion in Harlem. It's now called Morris Jumel Mansion, and so we'll be there on Saturday the 16th. And what's nice about these is that this is before the book comes out, so the publisher is releasing books to Yonkers ahead of time, which is nice.
Mary, just in closing, is there anything that perhaps I forgot to ask you, but you would like to talk or would like to say anything about it?
Well, I think that, one thing that helped me is preparation in life. We were talking earlier about what it takes to try to be successful, and I think success really is based on preparation, and when preparation meets opportunity. So whether it comes to reading books and really understanding what's happening in the world, that's a really helpful thing. Whether it comes to, we were talking about being a mom and what it takes to do that, but all of it is really based on just making sure you're as prepared as possible, because when the time comes, when that moment comes, you just want to be ready for it.
Thank you, Mary. So, guys, we're here at Le Moulin Vendedoc. My accent. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Vendedoc.
This is a great spot. Come by.
Exactly.
Yes.
This is a great spot.
Say hi to Josie when you come.
Exactly. Say hi to Josie. French food. You guys gotta come down and try it out. It's small, kind of family, kind of ambiance. Sometimes they have opera here. I heard it.
Beautiful.
Was it? You've been
Yes,
here?
Yes. And Josie is going to be doing the cuisine for the Philipse Manor event, so it will be delicious.
So guys, you have to come here and check it out. So support our local businesses. Go around, eat all types of food. We have a whole bunch of how do they call it, eateries in Yonkers. Different foods, different rations, local. Come and check them out. So Le Moulin, 1 Vendedoc. I don't know if it's the correct number, but once you get here, you will see it. Stay tuned for more.